Hello, everybody. We are here with Gabriel and John Shipton, and that is the brother and the father of Julian Assange. Gabriel and John, welcome, and thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Marianne.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We met several weeks ago. You were on a tour of the United States. You went to something like 15 cities, spent a month here trying to get the word out, and I think by any measure, successfully so. You can really feel that there's a growing understanding on the part of many people around the world, obviously, but in the United States, which is a very important place for the understanding to increase about the situation. And I know it must be very psychologically and emotionally trying for both of you to constantly be repeating the story, although I hope that there has been some satisfaction for you in the fact that I certainly know in Washington, D.C., you were well received. So a couple of things. If you could give us a little thumbnail sketch, because some people are not aware. And number two, I want to hear how you were received in the United States in your experience. And then I want an update. We need to talk about where things are now, how you feel about the latest British moves, the Siggy Thorson case, etc. So I'm going to just throw it over to you to tell people what you want people to know about the Julian Assange case, about your son, John, about your brother, Gabriel, and what you think this is really all about.
Okay, just I'll do the thumbnail. Gabriel's more versed on the rest. Back in 2010, Julian Assange and WikiLeaks released, uh, uh, published, along with the New York Times, Der Spiegel, Le Monde, and the Guardian in the United Kingdom, a series of leaks allegedly provided by Chelsea Manning. They concern the Iraq War files, the Afghan war logs, the cables, so a set of cables concerning 10 years of American diplomatic activity at a certain level, called SIPRNet level, classified, not top secret, and the Guantanamo Bay files. Ever since then, Julian has been pursued in the first place by the Swedish prosecuting authority in a conspiracy documented with the Crown Prosecuting Service in the United Kingdom. Eventually, after a year and a half house arrest, taking up asylum under the Conventions of Asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. There spending 7.5 years until, under pressure from the State Department and the Department of Justice, President Moreno of Ecuador reversed the decision after being promised a $2 billion loan from the IMF, and reversed the decision without due process, by the way. And Julian was dragged from the embassy by 6 men and taken to court. He was sentenced to 9 months jail for breaking bond or skipping bail, a very unusual and harsh sentence. Most of the time it's ignored or given, 2 weeks or something like that. And now in maximum security, Belmarsh prison outside London continues to await and fight against extradition to the United States. On the 4th of January this year, the Judge Baritza in the extradition court in London decided not to extradite Julian, and the United States, or the Department of Justice, really appealed that decision, and the single High Court judge 2 weeks ago decided that the United States appeal could be heard by the High Court, and that's the circumstance up to date.
John, you just said something that I had never heard before, and I'd been very curious about. You just said that the IMF had promised a $2 billion loan to the Ecuadorian government if they would turn over Julian. Is that what you said?
Yes, and the loan did come through. Yes.
Yeah. It's so interesting because all I had ever read was after disputes with the Ecuadorians. So that's an interesting piece of the story. So, Gabriel, how do you how do you feel? I can imagine how you feel. What do you think right now? Do you think, where do you think we are right now? Do you think that the Siggy Thordarson revelation that basically the Justice Department had corroborated with him? I think they probably knew the falsehoods he was telling, and he was telling those falsehoods in exchange for immunity. As it turns out, he hardly knew Julian. He did not help Julian in the way the State Department said. Under normal circumstances, you would think that this would mean the whole case would fall apart. So where are we right now? Do you think it means the case will fall apart? Do you see the State Department just forging ahead? Where do you think things are right now?
Yeah, well, the Thordarson, those revelations that he was, he said that his statements were false, and I think really the DOJ, they need to let this go, this case go. The Thordarson, Thordarson's recanting of his statements is just another domino in this case that has fallen. It starts back from when the UN declared Julian was being arbitrarily detained back in 2016, and then the Swedish case against the Swedish investigation against Julian crumbled. Julian was removed from the embassy, and the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture found that Julian was suffering from the effects of psychological torture. The extradition was rejected in January, and now Thordarson's recanting of his witness statement is just another domino in the unraveling of this prosecution by the DOJ. So I expect they will, it needs to be dropped. Essentially, it's unraveling, and it's it's just embarrassing to the DOJ now that they're stuck with this Trump era prosecution. Under Obama, they found that Thordarson they couldn't collaborate with Thordarson on the prosecution because he's a convicted fraudster. He's convicted of abusing children. So under Eric Holder, they found that this person was not someone that the Justice Department could rely on their statements. But after Trump came into office and they started pursuing, they moved away from the Obama decision, which was not to pursue the case because of the New York Times problem. Under the Trump Justice Department, they were ignoring that, and it became the New York Times solution to go after Julian. And so they re-looked at these things, and they were so desperate to make this case that they decided to collaborate with this Icelandic, criminal, basically offering him immunity, offering him, money, flying him back and forth to the US, and now he's recanted his statement, and this section of what we call the PR charge, which is the indictment is 175 years in prison, and there's this one conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge, which is sort of the PR charge, which they're trying to frame Julian as a hacker rather than a journalist. So this PR charge will now just, it's just going to have to fall away, and all that's left is 16 espionage charges, which Julian for publishing, publishing information that people need to know. So, the thing is that journalists do that every day. So I just can't see how this prosecution can continue.
Well, that's why it's so often called a war on journalism. I know for you personally, it's very much a war on your brother, but it is a war on journalism. It is a war on whistleblowers. And it is very curious that the Biden administration is holding so tight to its position. There are so many issues where as soon as Biden got into office, he overturned that Trump did this, that he overturned that Trump did that, whether it has to do with environmental issues, whether it has to do with legal issues across the board. But when it came to your brother, when it came to Julian Assange, they have cited, they are aligning themselves with Trump policy rather than Obama policy. And that is very odd. And it does seem to be because something is at stake here in their mind. That has to do with any challenge given to their classification system, classified documents, military secrecy. Julian revealed terrible things that were done in the name of the Iraq War, and in the Iraq War, in the name of our freedom and in the name of Iraqi freedom, everything to do with civilian deaths that we didn't know about, to collateral murder, as they call it, just indiscriminate shooting into crowds, deaths of innocent people. And apparently we're not supposed to ask those questions. And they are certainly they're certainly holding to their position. Do you feel the needle is moving? Do you feel the kind of public information campaign that's gone on that you and your father have been a part of the way you have over the last few months? Do you think it's getting anywhere? Do you feel some hope?
Yeah, I do. I think, what's really interesting is that there is no one, there was a statement from the National Security DOJ back in February, which was a reaction to a letter that went to the DOJ from the 24 largest human rights and press freedom organizations in the US. So, Amnesty, ACLU, Human Rights Watch, all wrote to the DOJ saying, we see this as a real threat to press freedoms, an attack on the First Amendment. And the only people who responded, the only people who are defending this are the National Security DOJ. And at that time, it was still the Trump appointees. So it was the Trump National Security DOJ that were defending this. Now, since then, there has not been a single person in the Biden administration who's come out to defend this prosecution. So we saw
Wow.
Secretary Blinken asked about this prosecution in France by a French journalist, and he said, "Well, that's a matter for the DOJ. I know there's a lot of emotion around this case, but really it's a matter for the DOJ." He's not out there saying that this is, something that they want to move forward with. Jen Psaki was asked about this prosecution back on World Press Freedom Day by a New York Post journalist. She was asked, why is the administration pursuing this? When all these press freedom groups are saying this is bad for press freedoms, bad for First Amendment. Jen Psaki couldn't defend this prosecution. She said, "Well, it's a matter for the DOJ." So there's literally nobody in this administration defending this prosecution, which I think is a really interesting observation to have at the
Yeah, it
moment.
really makes you wonder. Yeah, who's holding on here? And there has been no public questioning of Merrick Garland or anyone else in the DOJ
No,
about this and why they're holding on?
no, not yet. I
Right.
mean, this is one of the
Well,
we were asking people to do is to, tell their we traveled across the US and we saw this, 15 cities, 20. We did over 20 live in-person events, panels. One with you in Washington, protests and street protests. We had a huge street protest in Chicago outside the UK consulate there. We did, so many, interviews. We were doing 20 so interviews. And as we traveled across, we saw the interest grow, from mostly the independent media. They sort of led the way. And then slowly, some of the mainstream media started jumping on board. We were talking about it on Democracy Now. We also talked about it on, we're on Tucker Carlson. So, it's this issue, this umbrella issue that, Amy Goodman and Tucker Carlson can come together on this issue, this press freedom issue. This is it's a bipartisan issue. It's across the aisle. It's not left. It's not right. This is an issue that matters to everyone in the United States. And that's what we saw when we traveled across the country. That's what, explaining to people, what this is about. It's about the Manning leaks, 2010, the leaks that sort of have changed US foreign policy for the better. Pulled out of Afghanistan and things like that. So this stopped wars, saved American lives, saved soldiers' lives. That's what this prosecution is about, and explaining that to people. And people seem to get it. Americans seem to get it that that this prosecution is a threat to their rights, their First Amendment rights, their right to a free press. So we would, a lot of people were convinced that they need to take this to the representatives and get them to say to the Justice Department, hey, what's going on? All the largest press freedom groups, all the largest human rights groups in this country say this is bad for press freedom. Why are you pursuing this? I think that's what sort of needs to happen. It needs to be some, questioning on that level from people's representatives in the US.
There's a mystery there. I mean, Blinken doesn't want to, it's like a hot potato. He says, it's not about me. It's about the DOJ. Jen Psaki, not about us. It's about the DOJ. And the fear, of course, is it's about the very nefarious presence of the military-industrial complex, the secrets involved there that apparently more of our agencies are bowing to and deferring to than we like to think. And of course, this is very dangerous because if there's no free press, there's no democracy. And I do agree with you. I think that more and more Americans are waking up to the serious threats to our democracy coming from various fronts. And Julian Assange is just one example of a threat to the freedom of the press in the United States, a real attack on whistleblowers. And I think many of us realize that he's not the criminal. The crimes are the war crimes that he revealed. And for that, he is due thanks, not condemnation. So I thank you very much for letting us know where we are now. Is there anything else about the case that you feel like you want to make sure that people know?
Well, just in particular, a generalization that we understand the great benefit that the First Amendment and the embrace by the First Amendment of the press in regards to those leaks that happened in 2010. The Afghanistan war is finished. They're out. The occupation of Iraq and Syria. Brett McGurk, the day before yesterday, revealed that the troops were being withdrawn from Iraq and Syria. Guantanamo Bay is on the cusp of being closed. These immense benefits to the quality of the administration of foreign affairs in the United States have come about through the press publishing under the umbrella of the First Amendment, those leaks all those years ago. It's 10 years now. It takes really a long time to turn around a foreign policy, but it has been achieved by the press, by the leaks, and by the understanding of the people in the United States of the circumstances of those wars. That's really a great thing.
I think Americans are a decent people. I think that many Americans realize that they were fooled when it comes to the Iraq War, that it was a terrible mistake, that it should never have occurred. And the last thing they want to think is that not only did we inappropriately go there, but that having gone there, we did things that we never like to think the American government or the American military would be engaged in. And I think sometimes there's this shoot the messenger mentality. What Julian has revealed is so difficult for Americans to even take in that that's the way our government behaved. It's very similar to Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers. And just as the release of the Pentagon Papers did lead to in many ways, to the winding down of our wars in Southeast Asia, as you just said, John, this is leading to, hopefully, to the continued winding down of our involvement in places around the world that we probably should not be in. So Julian is not here for us to say thank you, so we say thank you to both of you. And it's, as I said before, it's very clear it can't be easy for either of you. I have great admiration for you personally, that you came to the United States, that you're pleading this case, that you're explaining it all to people. And I so hope that you get to have the family reunion that I know that you both yearn for so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Marianne.
Marianne. It's been a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to an exciting day, a happy day when all of this can be behind you and all of you can heal. All my best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.